YouTube channel. Each provides an avenue for you to receive information, heighten education, awareness, and involvement. The school board is indeed grateful for your attendance as we continue to move our school division forward in one direction as hashtag One Caroline. Again, welcome to the school board meeting. And now I would like to ask the clerk of the board to please call the roll.
Miss Megan Mccoy, Student School Board Representative. Mr. Sean Kelly, representing the Madison District. Mrs. Nancy Carson, representing the Mattaponi District. Dr. Jawanda Rollins-Fells, representing the Reedy Church District. Dr. Sarah Calverick, Superintendent of Schools. Mr. George Spalding, representing the Bowling Green District. Mr. John Copeland, representing the Western Caroline District. Mr. Calvin Taylor, representing the Port Royal District. And I am Lisa Stevens, Clerk of the Board. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mrs. Stevens. At this time, I would ask Mr. Spalding to please lead us in the invocation. And then I would like for our special students at Bowling Green Elementary to please come forward for the Pledge of Allegiance. In that order, please. Mr. Spalding.
We come to work on the county students, Lord, showing us the right direction, to make the right decisions, Lord. Lord, thanking you for this past year for all the things that you've done for us. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Can we give our BGE students a big round of applause? I think that's my favorite part of the meeting, right there. Thank you, boys and girls, and thank you to our parents who came out tonight to support your students as well. At this time, I will entertain a motion from the board for the approval of the December 13th, 2021 agenda.
So moved.
The motion has been made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call for the vote.
Mr. Spalding.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mrs. Carson.
Aye.
Mr. Copeland.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor. Dr. Rollins-Fells.
Aye, the motion carries. The agenda is approved. I would now like to have Ms. Karen Foster come forward with our Pathways 2022 Spotlight. And this evening's presentation is on our Teachers for Tomorrow program.
Good evening, Dr. Rollins-Fells, Vice Chair Carson, members of the board, Dr. Calverick, and our community. It is my privilege tonight to introduce Ms. Stephanie Sadler to you, who is our current instructor for our Teachers for Tomorrow program. She is going to share with you this evening some of the things that our students have been working on, some of the opportunities that they have had throughout the division, and what to look forward to in the coming semester. Ms. Sadler?
Good evening, Madam Chair Dr. Rollins-Fells, Vice Chair Carson, members of the board, and Dr. Calverick.
Tonight, I'm here to provide you with information and updates surrounding this year's Teachers for Tomorrow class. Our objectives during this information is to provide you a high-level overview of what Teachers for Tomorrow is, highlight our curriculum to include what we've been doing the first semester of school and what's ahead next semester, as well as share some student experiences. Teachers for Tomorrow fosters student interest, understanding, and appreciation of the teaching profession and allows secondary students to explore careers in education. Students build a foundation for teaching. They learn the history, structure, and governance of teaching. They apply professional teaching techniques in the Teach for Tomorrow classroom, as well as field experience, and they reflect on their teaching experiences. As an English elective course, our class is open to juniors and seniors. This past semester, we've covered a myriad of topics. We began the year by examining the psychological aspects of education, studying human growth and development. Our topics included physical, cognitive, emotional, and psychosocial development theories, and as well as how they apply to education in the classroom. Next, we used the VCIC modules to cover the importance of diversity and inclusion to ensure an equitable learning experience for all. Dr. Monroe was so kind as to come and introduce this unit to our class. We used this knowledge of all the information to help us understand the importance of historical events as they're important to education as we studied the evolution of education. Students chose different key events, and we presented them to the class to review this important timeline. The highlight of the semester so far, especially for the students, has been the field work that we've completed. Students have observed and interacted with classes at CMS as well as CHS, focusing on evidence of class material, as well as the technique of writing educational reflections. The students have jumped right in, and they've done a wonderful job. They are ready for any task, and last week they were instrumental in the organization and distribution of our new CAV gear to all CHS students, demonstrating their creativity, efficiency, organization, and follow-through, all important aspects of the teaching profession. As we look ahead to the second semester, we have great things in store. After concluding the semester by working on philosophy of education statements, we look forward to covering more topics and participating in additional field experiences. In collaboration with Dr. Carter, we will cover the foundations and laws of special education. Students will also complete observations at the elementary level, looking for evidence of the materials covered in class. After they do this, they will then use the best practices that they've observed to start developing short lessons to teach in our classroom as well as CCPS classrooms. This will serve as the foundation for students to create a thematic unit to teach in partnership with other schools in our county. Finally, in collaboration with our Human Resources Department, we will cover the pathway to licensure. It's our goal to one day have these teachers return to CCPS to make a difference for years to come. It is truly an honor and a privilege to work with this outstanding group of aspiring teachers, and I thank you so much for your support in making this class a reality. At this time, I will share some highlights from our class. We have several activities going on at the high school tonight, so I wasn't able to have any students join us for the time period, but I'd love to share with you some of their experiences. Senior Madison Zirkle said, "This class is super fun to me. We're always moving around and doing something new. I've learned a lot about childhood development and how to assist the children when they're in need." Sean Terrell, also a senior, said, "I would say I've had an amazing experience in this class. I found this class to be very uplifting and inspiring for me. The content is more than just the components of teaching, rather the development of the children you would be teaching along with providing a good learning environment." Also a senior, Ethan Beasley, said, "I love this class. It isn't super stressful, but it's also a great learning experience. I find it fun and educational being able to observe things from a teaching perspective." And finally, Michaela Silver said, "I've had an outstanding experience being in Virginia Teachers for Tomorrow's class. If you are planning on being a teacher or doing something with teaching components, this class is a great start. The more experience you have, the better. I've had so much fun in this class, and I feel free to be myself, and we never judge each other. It's a fun learning experience." It is such a pleasure to work with these wonderful students and prepare them to begin a career in education. William Butler Yeats said, "Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire." I can feel the energy from these students, and it's my hope that this class will ignite a lifelong passion of learning, that we will soon welcome them back to the CCPS family as employees. Thank you again for this wonderful opportunity. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Kelly?
I have a quick comment. I have the pleasure of speaking on a regular basis with one of your students who just thoroughly enjoys that class. I just wanted to personally thank you for the introduction that you have provided and the career path advice that is being received is not going unnoticed and is extremely appreciated. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
And I would just echo those sentiments. We know that there is a national teacher shortage. And so the approach of this board is to help grow our own. And so I'm glad that the class has started. We've been advocating for this program for a number of years. So thank you for your leadership. And I just echo, we are looking to hire those students when they finish and they're ready to begin a teaching career. So thank you.
I would just like to add, as an educator and an administrator, or past educator and administrator, I've always felt that this would be a good way to get some of our students involved in education. So I think this is just a great segue into education, and I just appreciate the job that you're doing.
Thank you.
And my last comment would be, as previous director of secondary, I was so excited for this program to get started at the high school, but as the director of human resources, I can't wait to hire our students in the future. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you both for the presentation for our Pathways 2022 Spotlight. We will now move into the celebratory part of our agenda. We have several honors and recognitions this evening. The first being with Dr. Sarah Calveric. As she approaches the podium, we will be honoring tonight our Superintendent's Art Award.
Good evening, Chair Dr. Rollins Fells, Vice Chair Carson, and members of the board. Exposure to art is critical to the development of every child. Art not only teaches students how to express themselves in creativity and individual ways, but students who participate in regular art-related activities perform better academically, develop greater self-confidence, and sharpen their fine motor skills. Beyond these apparent benefits, art education promotes problem-solving, critical thinking, perseverance, growth mindset, collaboration, focus, and accountability. All power skills CCPS graduates need to be 3E ready, enrolled, employed, and/or enlisted. At this time, I would invite Mrs. Cynthia Hextall, principal of Bowling Green Elementary School, forward, and she will introduce the Superintendent's Student Art Honor, first grade student Carmela Pleasance.
Good evening. I have the distinct honor and pleasure of welcoming Carmela. Her mother works for us, so she's one of our pairs. But her daughter, Carmela Pleasance, she is a first grade student, and this is a picture. Our art teacher was unable to be here tonight, but this is a picture. They were studying the color wheel, and this is her color wheel birds, and they had to do it in order. They had to color them in order. So if Carmela would please come up here to receive her award. Well, sure.
We like to hold the artwork hostage for 1 month, so getting this back to you safe and sound. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Carmela. We will now have Dr. Monroe come forward with the recognition of Election Day pages. Dr. Monroe?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Rollins-Fells, Vice Chair Carson, members of the board, and Dr. Calveric. It is a plum-pleasing pleasure to introduce to you our very own Caroline County Registrar, Catherine McVeigh. As she comes to the podium, she is here tonight to recognize our 2021 Election Day pages. Mrs. McVeigh? And she has the whole team with her this evening. Excellent.
Good evening. My name's John Nunley. I'm chair of the Carolina Electoral Board. I was thinking on the way over, I've been doing this for about 10 years now, and when I first got appointed, I knew nothing about elections. You all know about elections. You had to go through them. But it's something that's not taught normally in the schools. And it's probably one of the most important things that changes how we live day to day. So I think this is the best win-win situation that we could have, where we're bringing some education into the classroom and we get help on election day. And then they get to see firsthand how the election works. So we're tickled to death. We couldn't do it last year because of COVID. This year we were able to reinstitute it, and it has been a very beneficial program for us, and I hope it is for you. So I'm going to turn it over to our registrar to call the names of the participants for the page.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here tonight. Well, first of all, we'd like to recognize someone who is very vital in this process. We're so happy to have Amy Tillapa. You are very fortunate to have her. She's the one that coordinates all these activities. We want to recognize her tonight with a certificate. And we want to give her a flower because she makes our program bloom. Oh, no. You don't get to leave because you're going to call the names for us. And Amy, if you would help us, since you know these names so well, I don't want to mispronounce their names, and Amy has this down. I will be the person that hands them out.
Okay, I think we only have a few students here because,
But
again,
if you would call all the
I
names.
will call all their names. We have students in the academic bowl and students in sports and everything else. But if you're here, come on down and we'll recognize you. Tyler Alshire, Javier Amaya, Jada Anderson, Kylie Bailey, Stephanie Bailey, Jacob Blevins, Ashley Breeze, Asia Brooks, Dennis Canales, Joseph Dean, Miriam Galvan Salinas, Erica Gray, Grayson Kelly, Sean Kenny, Megan McCoy, Hassanatu Nimaga, Haneen Nolan, Tracy Petrie, Cheyenne Rumford, Ariana Scott, Alina Smith, we have Megan, and Haneen and Alina, and Riley Wallace, and Cheyenne, and Cooper Webb. And those were our Election Day pages who worked the election this year. So hand this out. And Cheyenne and Alina. And who am I missing? Haney.
I'm going to move the podium.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And if I could just add one thing, we're hoping now that they're turning 18 or turning 18 soon, they can actually become an officer of election. And we'd love to have them now that they have the training. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Can we give them all one more round of applause, please? Thank you. A big part of our 5 C's, number 5, citizenship. Outstanding. Thank you.
And thank you to our electoral board and officers for embracing our students and our school system as well. It's an example of a great community partnership. At this time, we will continue with our awards, and I'd ask Beth Markwood to please come forward to recognize our Deco winners.
Good evening, Dr. Rollins-Fells, Vice Chair Carson, members of the board, Dr. Calveric. Tonight, we're proud to present to you Caroline High School DECA winners. For those who do not know DECA prepares emerging leaders and entrepreneurs in marketing, finance, hospitality, and management in high schools and colleges around the globe. Tonight, we're going to recognize 4 students. 2 are with us, 2 are doing other things, of course. The 2 that are with us tonight, first is Kenny Newcomb, second place for the retail merchandising test category. We also have Hannah Clark. She won second place overall for personal financial literacy, and she will, go ahead, you can clap. And Hannah will advance to the state competition in March. We'd also like to recognize Riley Wallace for earning second place for the restaurant and food service management test at the district competition, and Brandon Burgess, who is not able to be with us tonight, but he won first place overall in the selling competition. I'd also like to recognize Miss Carol Seeley. She is our new marketing teacher, a brand new DECA advisor, and she is doing wonderful things with the students. So if we could give these students a round of applause for all their accomplishments. Oh, I can't do that.
Next, we will have the recognition of Megan McCoy, our student school board rep. And so, Megan, I am going to ask that you get a head start on me and go ahead down with Dr. Calveric. And as she comes, I'd ask that the audience would please give her an amazing round of applause. On behalf of Caroline County School Board, I am pleased to recognize Megan McCoy. Megan is being recognized for completing her term as our inaugural student school board representative. Megan was selected from a pool of candidates in a challenging COVID year, and she stood out because of her strong academics, leadership, and achievement. She is currently our senior class president at Caroline High School. She is a member of Beta, the Principal's Advisory Council, LinkedIn Leaders, and the Diversity and Inclusion Ambassadors Committee. Megan began her role as the student school board rep with an introductory presentation that highlighted how she saw her role and how she planned to make a difference during her term. And Megan indeed did make a difference. As our school board representative, she surveyed and presented on social and emotional wellness at Caroline Middle School and Caroline High School, which gave our school board and our staff insight on how students were truly feeling during this unprecedented year. Along with other offices she holds and committees that she's on, Megan managed her calendar like a champion. She attended the VSBA's Student Representative Conference and with students from across the state. She also participated in the VSBA Exhibitor Scholarship. It is my pleasure to present Megan with an engraved professional organizer so that she can continue to use this in her educational endeavors. Speaking of which, after graduation, Megan plans to attend college and has received acceptance letters from Virginia Tech and Penn State. As chair of the school board, Megan, I want to thank you for your dedication, the dedication of your time, your leadership, your service, your commitment, your truth, your transparency, and asking the hard questions that give our students a voice. Along with our thank yous, we will be presenting Megan tonight with the gift of her engraved planner, a certificate from the Virginia School Board Association, along with a scholarship that she won for $1,500.
We would be remiss not to recognize and acknowledge Megan's mother, who is in the audience. We do look forward to ushering in our new student representative in January when we do our restructuring meeting.
Introducing, yes.
Take that back right now.
Thank you for supporting Megan with your round of applause. And Megan, we wish you well in all of your future endeavors. Now with that, Megan was our inaugural candidate. We have started something here in Caroline County, and we'd ask that Ms. Foster please recognize our 2022 Student School Board member.
Good evening again, Dr. Rollins-Fells, Vice Chair Carson, members of the board, and Dr. Calveric. It truly is my pleasure to recognize Adam Swanton as our next student representative to the school board. Adam is currently a junior who is involved in numerous clubs and activities at Caroline High School, including CTE classes, athletics, and honors courses. Adam will begin his term in January and is ready, knowing that he has some big shoes to fill following Megan's work as the first Caroline County Public Schools student representative to the school board. At this time, please welcome Adam with a round of applause. And as Dr. Calveric mentioned, Adam will be joining you on the dais next month, and Megan will be helping him with the onboarding process and training, so thank you.
Very similar to Megan, Adam is flanked on his right and left side by his parents, who are both educators here in CCPS, Mr. and Mrs. Swanton. So we're very excited to have Adam joining our team. Congratulations.
Just a point of information for the public that may not be aware, not all school boards have a student representative. That is a local decision. And especially in the period of time with COVID and all of the transitions that were happening, we really felt that it was critical to have the voice of our students represented on this board. And so thank you, Megan. And Adam, we look forward to you being part of the team as well. That concludes our awards, recognitions, and commendations. And so we will proceed with our agenda. And at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion about the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll for the vote.
Mr. Taylor? Mr. Copeland?
Aye.
Mrs. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Spalding? Dr. Rollins-Fells?
Aye. The motion carries. The consent agenda is approved. We will now move to our information section of our agenda. We have several updates tonight, and we will begin with a presentation from Dr. Monroe on the CCPS 2027 Strategic Planning Update. Dr. Monroe?
Great evening again, Madam Chair, Dr. Rollins-Fells, Vice Chair Carson, members of the board, and Dr. Calveric. This evening, I am pleased to share updates in regards to the CCPS 2027 Strategic Planning Process and Timeline. As we all know, for the past 5 years, Caroline County Public Schools Strategic Plan Pathways 2022 has guided and empowered the next generation of learners, thinkers, and leaders. With the Pathways 2022 expiration date drawing near, CCPS has initiated the strategic planning process alongside with consulting firm Gaston and Schaefer. In November, a survey was sent to the entire Caroline community seeking stakeholders to join the Strategic Planning Steering Committee and or focus groups, as we believe in the idea that great schools make great communities. We are excited to announce that we had over 50 responses or respondents expressing interest in serving on a focus group and or on the steering committee. At this time, focus groups have been developed and the steering committee has been established. CCPS focus groups include parents from each magisterial district, select superintendent advisory committee members, community representatives and faith leaders, business partners and representatives from institutions of higher learning, high and middle school students, administrators and SROs, and school staff, which include teachers, paraprofessionals, coaches, counselors, social workers, nurses, custodial, and office staff. The aforementioned focus groups will meet throughout the day on January 14th in the SBO cafeteria, and the middle and high school group will meet at their home school. Senior staff and the school board are also considered a focus group as well. Gaston and Schaefer will conduct operational and instructional scans of senior staff members on January 6th, and the board scan date is to be determined later this evening. The steering committee, made up of select members from all focus groups, including the senior leadership team, Mr. Copeland and Vice Chair Carson and Dr. Calveric, will meet on January 25th from 4:30 to 7 p.m. here at Caroline Middle School in room NPR 7. The January 14th focus group schedule will start with our parent group and community representatives at 8:30 a.m. and close with our elementary stakeholders from 4:15 to 5:30 p.m. This thorough community engagement process will provide strength in the themes and objectives that are developed from the narrative to produce a strategic plan that the entire learning community can get behind as CCPS moves onward and upward from 2022 to 2027. As we look at our strategic planning timeline, January will kick off with external and internal stakeholders engaged in focus group meetings. There will also be 2 online community surveys, one for all CCPS employees and another for CCPS families that will be sent via School Messenger, all school media platforms, and housed on the CCPS website. We will close January with the steering committee meeting to identify core beliefs for mission and vision statement development. This work will continue in February as goals, objectives, and strategies will be drafted and refined throughout ongoing feedback with the steering committee and CCPS leadership team. Throughout February and March, Gaston and Schaefer, in collaboration with the CCPS steering committee, will refine and edit the goals, objectives, and strategies as needed to begin development on identified metrics to support goals and objectives of the plan. Create community press release and update to the school board on strategic plan process and progress and general outcomes of the entire process. With the February deliverables being a fully drafted goals, objectives, and strategies. As we enter March, A draft of the strategic plan will be submitted to the Caroline County Public Schools Steering Committee and Leadership Team for discussion and review of components to build final consensus and ownership of the plan, with the goal of presenting the draft at the March school board meeting. Once the document is final and approved by the board, a final metrics performance measurement strategy and reporting plan developed by Schaefer Evaluation Group will be designed to allow the division to begin a data collection process for baseline measures reflective of the goals in the new strategic plan. Our vision is to have a strategic plan dashboard on our new website devoted to reporting highlights and plan progress for community awareness, advocacy, and support. At this time, this concludes our strategic planning update for 2021. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, thank you, Dr. Monroe, and thank you to all who applied. I think that was a great response in terms of the community seeing the value in the strategic plan and participating in that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I now ask Mr. Wick to please come forward. Mr. Wick, on our informational items, will be discussing our COVID-19 update.
Good evening, Chair Dr. Rollins-Fells, Vice Chair Mrs. Carson, the rest of the board, and Dr. Calveric. This evening, I will provide you with the latest COVID-19 update for Caroline County and CCPS. Tonight, we will review COVID data, the impact of the shortened quarantine time, and updates regarding vaccines, the VISTA program, and potential legislation. We will begin with positive case numbers. As of today, CCPS has experienced a total of 361 positive cases, with 324 of those being students and 37 staff. You can see the breakdown by school and school board office, with IT, maintenance, and transportation included in the latter category. At least 59.6% of the positive tests are a result of the rapid test, and 20 fully vaccinated individuals have tested positive, which is an increase of 10 from last month. Regarding quarantines, also including today's numbers, CCPS has experienced 1,638 quarantines, with minimal staff falling into this category. 39 individuals have later tested positive for COVID-19, which is 2.4%. And 529 close contacts occurred at home to someone outside of school, which is about 32.2% of our quarantines. The primary indicators have gone up since last month. For the percentage of PCR positive tests as of December 9th, which is the latest date for which the CDC has provided data, CCPS is at 16.1. It was 8.8 last month, which is in the high transmission or red category. As of today, our cases per 100,000 is at 283.6. Last month it was 241.2, which also puts Caroline in the high transmission category. This number indicates that Caroline had 107 positive cases from December 7th through today, December 13th. To reach the 3 lower transmission categories, Caroline would need to drop to 30 cases over 7 days for the substantial category, 15 to reach the moderate category, and 3 to reach the low transmission category. So we have a long way to go to reach the low transmission category. Let us review the impact of the shorter length of quarantine for close contacts. Now in our second month of offering the shortened quarantine period, CCPS continues to experience a low percentage of quarantine students and staff later testing positive. As of today, 39 out of 1,638 people in quarantine have tested positive, which accounts again for 2.4%. This percentage has remained in a range between 2.4 and 2.7 since school began. This again affirms your decision to allow students to miss less time from school through shorter quarantine periods. The vaccine update is in regard to the vaccine for students aged 5 through 11, booster shot availability, and OSHA's Emergency Temporary Standard, or ETS. Thanks to a grant provided to the Community Vaccination Center in Central Park, Title I schools are eligible to host free vaccination clinics for students aged 5 through 11. Both Madison and Bowling Green Elementary are hosting these clinics today from 4 to 7 p.m. These clinics are also open to students from Lewis and Clark, Caroline Middle, and Caroline High Schools. Parents were made aware of the clinic through a flyer sent home in Thursday folders to all elementary students, as well as shared via school messenger by all schools. As a reminder, the Community Vaccination Center in Central Park offers vaccinations by appointment. The center is open from 10 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and it is located at 1877 Carl D. Silver Parkway. A booster update. In addition to the vaccine, boosters are available every Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Caroline Health Department. Appointments are preferred and could be made at the number seen on the screen. At the last meeting, you were informed that OSHA issued an emergency temporary standard that would require school staff to either be vaccinated or to get tested weekly. On November 12th, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 5th District granted a motion to stay the ETS. The 6th Circuit has since acquired jurisdiction over the case, and as of today, it has not yet rendered a decision. It is unclear when it will hear the case. However, if the stay is upheld, staff will not be required to get vaccinated or to test weekly if unvaccinated. If the ETS is upheld, I will provide an update regarding ETS requirements and timeline. In October, you were introduced to the VISTA COVID-19 testing program offered by the Virginia Department of Health, known as the Virginia School Screening Testing for Assurance. The program provides funding so school divisions can hire personnel to assist with weekly COVID-19 testing via pool testing. Our intention is to use this to test unvaccinated staff to be in compliance with OSHA's ETS that was just reviewed. At this time, the MOU is being reviewed by our lawyer. However, if the ETS is stayed, CCPS will not have a need to utilize the VISTA program. With the new governor taking office on January 15th, it is possible that legislation regarding mask wearing in schools will change. If school districts are given local control over mask decisions, the school board will have the opportunity to alter the current practice of requiring masks indoors in K-12 settings. Does the board have any questions?
I look to my left and right. Any comments or questions? Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, I have a question about the governor's mandate. Because my understanding was that the law that was passed with both parties was that we go back to school 5 days and that we follow all the CDC guidelines. And then the governor came over top of that and then issued the mask mandate. Is that right?
No, not really.
No?
To be honest with you, I can't remember the timeline of that, but the House bill, I think it was 1303, required the state of Virginia to follow the CDC guidelines. So that's why he kind of issued the mandate. He was saying we must follow what HB 1303 says. And at that time, the CDC required masks in K-12 settings.
Okay.
That may have been what you said. But
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
that's
Okay.
what I thought, because it got
Okay.
real. And it was, like you said, it was this, that, and the other thing all popping up within like a week of each other. So
I think it's important to raise to your attention a clarifying aspect, and that is that House Bill 1303 governs the rule. And so even as the gubernatorial transition occurs, if the governor has a desire to alter the current health ruling over masks in K-12, they would need to go through the General Assembly to modify House Bill 1303 for a change to occur. So I think it's important for the board to be prepared in case we as a local entity are empowered to make a decision, but there certainly would be ample time for us to discuss how we would want to approach that, because it would need to go through the General Assembly.
If I may?
Mr. Taylor?
Yes. The possible change does not include transportation, am I right? Is that not a federal thing as far as mask wearing on buses and public transportation?
Yes, that is a federal ruling that follows the CDC guideline where masks are required on public transportation. So again, I think to reinforce Dr. Calveric's statement, we would have to see what the General Assembly would rule as far as mask wearing goes and kind of play it by ear, which would probably take a little bit of time after the governor is inaugurated, if it even does change. Just saying that could be a possibility, you know, with the new governor, that they could amend House Bill 1303 or not.
But would they have the power to amend the federal requirements as well?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure the answer to that because CDC guidelines or recommendations, so they could change the mask mandate. I'm not sure where the public transportation falls in that.
Okay.
I think what's important for the board and for the public to know is this is why we have Mr. Wick as a standing agenda item, so that every month we have those updates. If there is something that is critical that has an impact, then we do have the prerogative to call a special called meeting if that would occur. So we will keep an eye out for your updates. Thank you for coming monthly with transparent data so that we can be aware of what's going on.
Yes, ma'am, you're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Thank you. Mm-hmm. At this time, we will have our mid-year academic review. I'd like to call Beth Hausler and Dr. Herbert Monroe to the podium.
Great evening again, Madam Chair Rollins-Fells, Vice Chair Carson, members of the board, and Dr. Calveric. This evening, Mrs. Hausler, Coordinator of Assessment and Reporting, and I will share the CCPS mid-year academic review. We will give a high-level overview of student achievement and interventions K-12. Student data will include results from the Virginia Kindergarten Readiness Program, VKRP, Phonological Awareness Literacy Screening, better known as PALS, Quarter 1 Growth Assessment in the areas of reading and math for grades 3 through 8, and the Secondary Student DNF Report. Once data is shared, the aligned interventions will be presented and explained that will provide the appropriate targeted remediation, extended instruction, enhanced small group differentiation and engagement, as well as extension opportunities. The aforementioned student assessment data serves as a baseline for recovery, and school teams are working strategically to recover learning loss to accelerate growth. At this time, Mrs. Hausler will start the presentation with elementary schools.
Good evening. At the elementary level, we're going to look at math and literacy data for the primary grades and recent growth assessments in grades 3 through 5. The Virginia Kindergarten Readiness Program is administered twice a year to students in kindergarten. Using manipulatives and a flip book, teachers assess a student's early math skills in 4 domains: geometry, patterning, numeracy, and computation. 73% of all kindergarten students met the fall benchmark. Using the Child Behavior Rating Scale, teachers assess students on 32 items related to self-regulation and socio-emotional development. The scale includes items related to sharing, following directions, and cooperation with peers. As you can see, most of our kindergarten students met the fall benchmark, 85% for self-regulation and 88% for social skills. It is heartwarming to see that despite a challenging 2021 school year, students are coming to us with a solid foundation, both academically and socially. The Phonological Awareness Literacy Screening, commonly known as PALS, is a state-mandated assessment given to students in early elementary school. These assessments are designed to measure literacy fundamentals such as sounds, letter recognition, and fluency. They can be used as a diagnostic tool to provide teachers with information to help guide their teaching. All students from kindergarten through grade 2 are screened 3 times a year in fall, winter, and spring. Additionally, a subset of 3rd grade students are tested in the fall and at mid-year. This select group of students were previously identified through PALS testing. They are new to Virginia or received remediation in the summer academy. So if you look at the data here, you can see the number of students assessed in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and third grade, the number identified, and the percentage. So looking at the chart, you can see for kindergarten, it was 27% of all of our kindergartners. In first grade, it was 50%, second grade, 47%, and then in third grade, it is 70%. So remember, first and second grade students especially were impacted of the events in 2020 and in 2021 with limited access to in-person instruction. The numbers in the third grade represent a subset of our population. Third grade has 319 students. A little less than half of the students were assessed. Of the students that were assessed, 70% did not meet the fall benchmark. In January, we will utilize the PAL mid-year assessment as a progress monitoring tool, testing all students in grades K through 2 and the identified students in third grade. Legislative action during the 2021 General Assembly required the development and administration of the new growth assessments in math and reading for students in grades 3 through 8 during the 21-22 school year. With the growth assessment, students receive a vertical scaled score that is used in conjunction with the aligned spring SOL test to show student growth. It is important to note that students in these grades were assessed on the previous grade level content. This fall, on the grade 4 math growth assessment, a fourth grader was tested on math concepts from the third grade standards. There is one exception for third grade students. As there are no test items for second grade content, students in third grade were tested on third grade content that was aligned to the content taught in second grade. For teachers and administrators, student results are utilized to determine the amount of support that students need with the current year instruction. Looking at the chart above, for each grade level, the number of students assessed is listed. The first category, needs additional support as new content is introduced, reflects students who scored in the lower ranges on the assessment. These students will require additional supports to learn new content in math. The may need some additional support to learn new content group scored just under the benchmark. These students are commonly referred to as the bubble students. The final group is the most likely prepared to learn new content. They exceeded the benchmark and are ready to learn new content with no need for additional scaffolding. As you can see from the data above, the bulk of each grade level is following in the needs additional support category. Fourth and fifth grade students had a greater number of students who are most likely prepared to learn new content. Remember, the third grade students this fall are new to state mandated testing. In this chart, we are looking at the results for the reading fall growth assessments. Compared to math, a larger number of students are falling in the most likely prepared to learn new content. Students in fourth and fifth grade outnumber those in the needs additional support category. The bubble group, who may need additional support, is relatively equal across the grade level span. As with math, this was the first time that the third grade students had engaged in these types of state assessments. Now, back to Dr. Monroe as he details elementary interventions.
Thank you, Mrs. Hausler. Elementary interventions. CCPS has a school support team process called SST, which provides a formal structure in which central office expertise and support are shared with building level leaders to improve student performance while achieving full accreditation and federal accountability for the school and school division. Through this collaborative process with all elementary schools, the following interventions were identified with measurable action items and a timeline for completion. 1, small group instruction, which is a standard practice for both reading and math. However, the SST team, in collaboration with school leaders, identified the need to increase the level of differentiation and include accountability measures during centers and station time to ensure all students are making progress in areas of growth. Once concepts are mastered, small groups will be adjusted to address the next strand or concept in need of improvement. 2, IE time, known as intervention and enrichment, is in place at all elementary schools to allow students to be retaught, review, retest, or experience extension activities so every learner receives specifically what they need to close learning gaps as well as extend learning. Also, we have Daily 5, which include the day-to-day reading experiences where students read to self, read to someone, listen to literature, do word study, and have ongoing writing experiences to become stronger readers to enhance learning across the curriculum. Also, instructional support programs such as Dreambox will continue to be used during instructional time and at home for independent practice to close gaps. Also, we have student-centered, teacher-led number talks, which are designed to support teachers and students as we continue our move away from a more direct style of teaching mathematics towards a more inquiry-based style. This allows students to express their mathematical thinking, learn from their mistakes, and feel safe and comfortable in doing so, which builds retention and mastery of concepts. We also have the next one, which is so important, which is parent communication. Administrators, teachers, paraprofessionals, counselors, and family engagement coordinators are all working together through weekly messaging, social media posts, parent communication apps, virtual and face-to-face conferences, as well as direct emails and phone calls to let parents know all remediation opportunities here in Caroline County Public Schools. This level of communication and partnership has helped to provide supports in the home to assist in recovery of learning loss and in closing learning gaps. We also provide push-ins. All schools have all hands on deck, which is what we see as a culture where paraprofessionals and specialists are assigned to push in where needed weekly. Areas of need are identified during our PLC Plus meetings where data is reviewed to drive targeted remediation activities and differentiated learning groups. Now, let's turn to secondary. We will be looking at math and reading growth assessments administered in the fall. The vast majority of students enrolled in Math 6, 7, and 8 require additional supports as new content is introduced. About 20% of students in grades 6 and 7 fell into the bubble category, potentially required some additional support to learn new math concepts. About 12% of eighth grade students who tested fell into this category. It is important to note that students enrolled in Algebra 1 did not take the growth assessment, and it is not required or aligned with spring assessment. The data from the reading assessment show the largest number of students who met the benchmark on growth assessments. Between 38 and 47% of students in grades 6 through 8 are most likely prepared to learn the new content. The remainder of the students fell in the may need or needs additional support category. The data presented is not the only data shared with teachers and administration. The student detail by question report breaks down student results by reporting category, SOL strand, item descriptors, and item difficulty. This detailed report is used during PLC Plus meetings to make instructional decisions on remediation groups and in creating remediation and enrichment activities. A second important piece of data to consider for middle school students is their academic performance. The DF report includes students who have received a D or F or combination of the two in at least one subject area in quarter 1 or 2. In this report, 8th grade students at the middle school make up about 41% of the total number of students on the report. Grade 6 and 7 have a similar number of students on the report as well. Per the aforementioned legislation regarding the administration of growth assessment, high school students do not take growth assessments in math and reading. For comparison purposes, we are going to look at district common assessment data in math and in reading. Algebra 1 and geometry are the most widely tested standards of learning areas of math at the high school level. Algebra 1 is the federally mandated indicator for math for most students. Students who take Algebra 1 in 8th grade would be assessed in geometry in high school to meet the federal participation requirement. Looking at the numbers on the chart, most Algebra 1 students who completed this assessment met the benchmark of performance. The assessment data for geometry shows 60% of the students who took the assessment meeting the benchmark. In high school, students take one SOL test for reading in 11th grade. The assessment is cumulative and includes standards from both 9th and 10th grade. Consequently, the English Common Assessments listed on the data chart are representative of these 3 grade levels. As you can see, the English 9 Common Assessment was administered to most students in 9th grade. 77% of these students met the benchmark of performance. The English 10 and 11 assessments were given to a smaller number of students. In 10th and 11th grade, a smaller number of students are enrolled in general English. Some students are enrolled in advanced placement and governor school courses. The percentage of students meeting the proficiency benchmark was similar at 57 and 53%. At the high school level, students actively transverse the role to graduation. Requirements for standards and verified credits, CTE certifications, and college, career, and civic readiness are important elements that impact the end goal. The DF report provides a quick picture of student performance. Based upon the breakdown on the chart, about 64% of students in each grade level can be found in this report. These students have at least one D, F, or combination of the two in enrolled courses for quarter 1 and or quarter 2. Again, the CCPS school support team process described for our elementary schools is also followed on the secondary level to allow senior staff to support building level leaders to improve student performance to achieve full accreditation and federal accountability for the school and school division. Secondary math supports and interventions include 1. Professional development on engagement protocols for whole and small group instruction, which will be led by Mrs. Burnap, CCPS math specialist, in collaboration with building administration. Peer observations will also be implemented to observe and modeling best practice in engaging whole and small group math instruction. 2, teachers have also been charged to increase the use of manipulatives, visual aids, and classroom anchor charts to immerse students in a learning environment where they see, touch, and interact mathematically from bell to bell. 3, tutoring. Students will have multiple opportunities to receive remediation during the instructional day and or after school. 4, instructional support programs will be in place, such as IXL, will continue to be used during instructional time and at home for independent practice to close gaps. 5, number talks have been implemented, which are question stems to allow students to express their mathematical thinking. And 6, teacher use performance data, such as the student's performance by question, to create differentiated warm-ups and to establish small groups. And also, teachers are also reteaching strands and allowing students to reassess after tests and quizzes corrections are completed. For secondary English language art interventions, they encompass 1, teachers are using the VDOE GIST resources that provide examples of how the knowledge, skills, and processes found in the SOL and curriculum framework can be presented to students in the classroom, allowing for additional practice to build retention and tested skills. 2, pre-post assessments are ongoing to build appropriate warm-ups, exit tickets, and core lessons. These assessments help teachers in assigning students to the appropriate learning groups and creating differentiated activities to meet the needs of all learners. And 3, instructional programs such as Lexia and No Red Ink also provide differentiated support, remediation, and review that allows students to work independently on areas of growth. Modules or lessons are completed and students get immediate feedback. Teachers are using ongoing spiral review and daily review questions on the most frequently missed skills to keep essential knowledge objectives in need of improvement at the forefront. This concludes our first semester academic mid-year review and update. Are there any questions?
I'll look to the board first. Are there any questions? No. Okay. I do have a question for clarification, and then I have a request. Did you state that not all students in the elementary report took the PALS assessment?
Not all third graders.
Not all third grade.
Only all the state required, just like they did last year, that all students in kindergarten, first and second grade take the PALS assessment.
Okay, and then if they were identified in second grade, then they were reassessed in third?
Yes.
Okay. I have, and not to blur the lines between our role in governance as a school board, but the educator and me would like to have a follow-up conversation because we know that learning loss or learning recovery, as we're calling it, is a real thing. But I would like to have a follow-up conversation, perhaps with you, Dr. Calveric, and the instructional directors to look more intently at the data points and then how we're leveraging our academic coaches and our specialists. And then in terms of the tutoring and that sort of thing, because the data suggests that we really need to have some academic support in some very specific areas to see where we can leverage business, community, or civic organization, those who have service leadership as their thrust, to come in and support specifically math and reading, perhaps with that third grade group. And then just as a positive, I made a note that tracking the D and F list to me says that you're not off the radar and you're not falling through the cracks. You are very much, that data is very much being watched. And so I would like to know more about the intentional plan with those students.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. At this time, keeping in the theme of academic updates, we will have our K-2 Virtual Academy Survey data presented by Margaret Bryan.
Good evening, Chairperson Dr. Ross Follows, Vice Chair Carson, Dr. Calveric, and distinguished board members. This evening, I will present the K-2 Virtual Academy update. At the beginning of the school year, CCPS implemented a virtual academy for grades 3 through 12. As a follow-up to the September school board meeting, I will cover the current progress of the virtual academy grades 3 through 5 and the feasibility of the expansion of the elementary virtual academy to grades K through 2. This evening, I'll cover 5 objectives throughout the presentation, highlighting the feasibility of the expansion of the elementary virtual academy to grades K through 2. Specifically, my presentation will include current offerings and the criteria, the timeline of the interest survey results, staff and student ratio requirements, and considerations and recommendations. Let's begin with a short review of the current academic virtual academy criteria for grades 3 through 5. First, let's revisit the criteria of the virtual learning students. The current elementary criteria consists of virtual student profile evaluation, which includes passing all current classes, meeting attendance requirements, and demonstrating successful work habits. The criteria is based on the research from the DOE as a profile of a successful virtual student. All virtual academy students must participate in both synchronous and asynchronous instruction off campus. Teachers work across the division with one grade level at the virtual teacher for each district. However, the students still participate in after-school activities and assessments within their assigned elementary school for enrollment. For example, a 4th grade Bowling Green student will have a Madison Elementary School teacher, but attend Bowling Green's assessments and building activities as even though the student's daily attendance schedule is aligned with the Madison teacher. Looking at this example of an elementary schedule for Monday through Friday, the synchronous day begins at 8:30 and ends at 1:45. From 1:45 to 3:15, students begin their asynchronous timeline. Teachers use this time for reading groups, remediation, small group exercises, and student services. The schedule mirrors the in-person school schedule so that transitions are seamless for students and teachers. As you can see, the schedule requires a great deal of screen time as well as attention to class activities. Students are expected to work in whole groups and independently throughout the day. Most of the students are successful and are thriving in this virtual learning model environment. Currently, there are 59 students in the 3 through 5 Virtual Academy program with a 97% pass rate. Those students not passing are receiving extra services through Student Services Department and have been recommended to return to the building. It is important to note that the 2 students not performing well in the Virtual Academy did not meet the criteria and were placed in the Virtual Academy through Student Services. Students that are unable to thrive are placed back into the building for in-person instruction for more support. Students actively participating in the elementary grades were determined based on the parent survey results and research-based test practices during the 2020-2021 school year. So why a reevaluation of the interest in virtual learning for the primary grades? It was our response to the community voice, phone calls, emails, and interactions that jump-started the process. Due to a vocalized interest in the virtual option for kindergarten through second grade and allowing for more social distancing by increasing the footprint square footage within our K-2 classrooms, CCPS began taking steps to obtain interest data from parents of kindergarten through second graders. We are now revisiting this data to ensure that the majority of the community has been heard. Let's take a look at the timeline planning data collection for the K-2 model. Electronic parent survey was distributed November 1 and remained open until November 15th, with a prompt closing at 6 p.m. While all elementary parents received this survey, it is specifically noted that it was an interest survey only, and therefore it did not guarantee enrollment. Rather, it provided data for future planning. The interest survey also served as a timestamp list of potential students. Parents were also informed that the interest survey participants would be placed on a potential enrollment list in order of their response. We reviewed, analyzed, and reported the data on starting November 16th and discussed the device inventory with technology department. At the time of the survey, the parents were informed that a recommendation would be presented tonight at the school board meeting. Pending this board's decision, we will follow the remainder of the timeline. Notifying parents and teachers of the student selection on December 14th and following immediately with device distribution over a 2-day period, December 15th and 16th. We will expedite the process under the because December 17th marks the end of the semester with students returning to school January 3rd. We would host a virtual open house on December 16th and follow up with parents on the 17th. Electing to proceed with the expansion will require schools to restructure classrooms and identify one teacher from each school to serve as the virtual teacher for that grade level across the division. This schedule mirrors our 3-5 preparation structure. The interest survey consisted of 16 questions, 16 identifiers, 3 location identifiers, and 7 questions. In relation to the interest and participation in the school virtual academy, it was advertised on the CCPS main page, Dojo, School Messenger, school web pages, Facebook, flyers, and folders. Reminders were sent within the 2-week period to our community members in response to the survey. The response to this survey was greater than the last. The survey yielded 314 responses. Parents were informed that the survey does not guarantee enrollment. However, the data provides clear factors in determining the clear need for expanding of virtual options K-2 at the elementary level. While this data will not be the sole driver in enrolling students, it is in virtual courses, and additional criteria will be used should we proceed with expansion. We had 264 responded no. That is 84% of the total population responded no to having a virtual academy. 50 responded yes, with a 16% return. The total responses per school were 68 for Bowling Green, 196 for Lewis and Clark, and 50 for Madison. It is important to note that 84% of the responses indicated that the community was not interested in a virtual option at this time for grades K-2. The data from the responses indicated that most respondents did not want to lose their current teacher. The potential impact to this large group of community members should be taken into consideration when making a decision about implementing the K-2 virtual learning model. Of the 50 yes respondents, Lewis and Clark had the greatest number with 26, Bowling Green with 14 had the next highest, and Madison had the least with only 10 families interested in a virtual academy expansion. Now let's take a look at the data per school and grade level. Kindergarten has 16 yes from Bowling Green, 10 from Lewis and Clark, and 3 from Madison. Grade 1 has 13 interested students from 6 from Bowling Green, 6 from Lewis and Clark, and 1 from Madison. And grade 2 has 21 responses with 5 from Bowling Green, 10 from Lewis and Clark, and 6 from Madison. Of the 50 respondents, Bowling Green has 19% of the 16% 19% of the kindergarten, 46 for grade 1 and 24% for grade 2. Of the respondents of Lewis and Clark, 62 for the kindergarten, 46 for grade 1, and 48% for grade 2. And of Madison, of the 50 respondents, 19% for kindergarten, 7% for grade 1, and 28% for grade 2. Let's take a look at the data in a different format. The student ratio for the primary virtual classroom is 22 students per teacher based on the Virginia Department of Education SOQs. According to the Virginia Department of Education, class sizes should be guarded and maintained at levels manageable and provide for quality instruction for all students. This data reveals that the largest class size would be second grade with 21 students, with the majority coming from Lewis and Clark at 48%. Kindergarten would comprise of 16 students, with the majority of that number coming from Lewis and Clark at 63%. The two classes would need to be made at Lewis and Clark in order to not negatively impact the 22-to-1 ratio for both Title I schools of Bowling Green and Madison. In order to make a class, all students in the kindergarten and grade 2 will be impacted in Lewis and Clark and need to be restructured. The first grade would consist of only 13 students, which reveals an unbalanced interest from each school. So for example, if 6 of the 22 students are virtual, 16 of the students of that classroom will need to be absorbed by other classes in the school building. This absorption would increase the class numbers for all classes in the building by losing that teacher. And an important data point for the consideration is that of the 314 responses, 257, or 83%, did not want to lose their teacher. Of that 10%, 50 of the yes respondents did not want to lose their teacher. Though the virtual option is preferred, they would prefer if the virtual option also came with their teacher. In addition to responding to the parent interest, CCPS would hope to decrease the population footprint within the classroom to allow for greater social distancing. Based on these results, the restructuring of the class due to the loss of teacher, classes would return to their current spacing of 3 feet or less. Therefore, if we base the decision solely on numbers, kindergarten and second grade would have enough interest to make a class, but at the end, it would impact to the rest of the grade level. As we take that into consideration, let's look at the interested students that met the criteria for virtual learning. In revisiting the criteria for virtual learners, we see that students must pass all their classes, meet satisfactory attendance, a requirement of 3 or less absences, maintain successful work habits, and to include completed tasks to be organized, to be highly engaged in their work, and can work independently. This criteria is based on the Virginia Department of Education characteristics of an effective learner. Additionally, for grade 2, we have the PALS test, which were just covered in the last presentation. This data was very helpful in screening students that need additional help and support in reading, and is strongly recommended that students needing additional support come into the building for in-person to receive additional remediation and support from student services offered in the building. A criteria screening tool was created based on the criteria presented from the DOE. Principals were asked to distribute this form to their current teachers and have teachers check the boxes based on the student's current performance. This was a yes or no form, with an opportunity for teachers to make recommendations and notes at the end. The information is essential to determine if the students that are interested in participating in the virtual learning model are potentially going to be successful in the virtual learning model. Based on the characteristics of an effective virtual learner, and the data reported in the blue denotes that only 6 or 43% in kindergarten qualified, 6 or 46% qualified for grade 1, and only 9 or 43% qualified for grade 2. The students that do not qualify are identified as needing additional support within the school building. This data reduces the actual class total numbers. The data reveals that the largest class would be a second grade class with 11 students. Kindergarten would be comprised of 7 students, and the first grade class would consist of 7 students, which again reveals an unbalanced qualifying interest from each school. Of the 50 yes respondents, less than 50% for each grade level qualify or meet the criteria for virtual learners. Kindergarten has 6 of 16 students with 1 outlier that cannot be determined. Grade 1 has 6 of 13 students. Grade 2 which had 21 yes respondents, has 9 students with 2 outliers. This brings us back to not having enough students to create a class without expanding the in-person classes above the SOQ ratios. Considerations for this board are as follows. Currently, the data suggests that there is an interest in the K2 virtual option. However, once weighing the criteria, there is not a significant enough of students interested in the K2 virtual academy that qualify for a virtual learning model, with 16% of yes students in grades K through 2 across 3 elementary schools. Thus, the virtual classes will not be filled to capacity at the 22-to-1 ratio, thus leaving the remaining students funneled into other in-person classes, increasing the number of students per in-person classrooms. As a result, an elementary school may struggle to maintain the current class ratios with the restructuring of classrooms and the loss of the teacher for the school per grade level, or one school will need to restructure the entire kindergarten and second grade class, funneling students into other teachers. K2 Virtual Academy will have a less than 0.05% impact on the total in-person footprint for the school if CCPS did not utilize the criteria. In using the criteria, the K through 2 Virtual Academy will have less than 0.02% impact on the total in-person footprint for the school. Of that total 314 responses, 257 or 83% did not want to switch teachers. It is the team's responsibility to recommend what we think will benefit the students and community of Caroline County. And while the expansion of a virtual academy into the K through 2 option appears reasonable on the surface, the data does not support the development of the program at this time. CCPS is grateful for our school and our community members who shared their voices by responding to the interest survey and believed in CCPS to respond favorable to their wishes. The data reveals that despite our best efforts to expand to the elementary virtual academy, the overall data is less than favorable for our K through 2 students. Any questions?
Are there any questions from the board? Mr. Taylor?
Yes, it's a lot of information to absorb. How does this compare with special education students, or are any special education students included in these numbers?
There were some students that were included in there that may have had an IEP, and should they had qualified for the virtual academy, they would receive services. However, those students tend to get extra services or placed in as needed into different virtual models, such as homebound or having a home-based teacher or other avenues. So that once they apply to the academy, it still goes back to that IEP to make a team decision.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other questions? I'll look this way. Mr. Kelly?
Just a comment. I wanted to say thanks for literally, it seems like, going out and beating the bushes and getting more respondents to the questionnaire and painting a very clear picture of where we stand statistically. And I think that this is information we can all go back to our constituents with and say, this is what it looks like, this is what we would have to do. And even if we would consider moving forth with a virtual model for kids K1 and 2, that you're talking about upsetting about 80% of the student population in those grades by rearranging classes and giving them new teachers. And right now I think consistency is probably way better than pulling kids around and throwing them in a different room. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I just have one. The last time I did make a recommendation in terms of communicating. That was the feedback that our constituents were giving us. And so I just want to say thank you. I know that as a board member, I even shared the survey to make sure that people knew about it. The robocall, the call from the school, the call from the school board office, the notes in the book bag. I think that's a great and valiant effort to make sure that the word is out. And I would echo Mr. Kelly's sentiments. It's, again, one of those things where there will be a difference of opinion in the community, but the data and how the data points have laid out really illustrates the impact. So thank you for the courageous work. I know that's a challenge, but thank you for being transparent with the data.
Thank you.
At this time, we will at this time, we will have an update on the Virtual Virginia CCPS Virtual Academy. And we'd ask that Dr. Monroe and Ms. Bryan, if you would please come back to the podium.
Good evening, Chairperson Dr. Rollins Fells, Vice Chair Carson, Dr. Calveric, and distinguished members of the board. This evening, we will present to you an update of the current CCPS Secondary Virtual Academy. Our objective this evening is to cover the current offerings, the criteria for our virtual students, enrollments, and the student performance data. Let's begin with virtual models and staffing. At the secondary level, CCPS has partnered with Virtual Virginia. Virtual Virginia provides the staffing and daily schedule, which consists of both asynchronous and synchronous instruction for CCPS students. This is a snapshot of a 6-12 secondary schedule. There are some schedules that do not fit this time frame and may meet outside of normal school hours. However, it is important to note that Fridays are work days for students and not free days. Students are expected to log in and complete assignments for all classes. Based on the nature of the Virtual Virginia schedule and the required student accountability, it is essential that students that are enrolled in Virtual Virginia must meet the following criteria for the program. The secondary criteria consist of data that was compiled from the February 2021 Virtual Interest Survey. The criteria that was used for entry into the program to Virtual Virginia student profile evaluation consisting of passing all classes and meeting attendance requirements, teacher recommendations, and meeting the independent working skills of the characteristics of an effective virtual learner. Since we are partnering with Virtual Virginia, which requires a financial investment, we want to ensure students are set for success for the entirety of the school year. In addition to the CCPS screening process, Virtual Virginia collaboration with the Virginia Department of Education lists digital citizenship, self-advocacy, working independently, demonstrating mastery of learning, turning assignments in on time, using your voice and choice, participation in organization, engaging in learning activities as characteristics of an effective virtual learner. Students who meet the criteria are currently enrolled. The current enrollment numbers in Virtual Virginia from July 2021 to December 2021 are as follows. At the initial enrollment period, CCPS enrolled 92 secondary students in Virtual Virginia. Over the course of the semester, 31 secondary students have returned to in-person learning due to a variety of concerns by students and or parents. Some students have not been as successful as they hoped in the virtual learning environment in spite of the numerous supports and interventions that have been offered. CCPS proactively developed interventions and embedded a variety of supports into the CCPS Virtual Academy program. If a learner is in need of support, there are a variety of interventions that are available to students and parents to get back on track. For example, if any student falls below a 70%, an email from Virtual Virginia is sent to the student, parent, and mentor. If a student falls below 60%, an email is sent to the student, parent, mentor, and school counselor. Once this email is generated from Virtual Virginia, immediately interventions are put into place. Virtual Virginia and CCPS provides a plethora of interventions and acts as a collaborative partner with parents to assist students that may fall below the benchmark. Student interventions are tiered based on student needs. Even with the most intense intervention plan, students may continue to struggle within the Virtual Virginia learning model. CCPS has grouped struggling students into tiers in order to better meet individual students' needs. Tier 1 is students with 1 D or F and falling under 70% in any class or if a student requests additional supports. Tier 2 is a student that has made more than 1 D or F in multiple classes and or dropping under 60%. Tier 3 is a student with 2 or more Ds and Fs in more than 2 classes or been administratively dropped from enrollment from Virtual Virginia and faces a recommendation to return to in-person learning. Students are not static in the tiers and can move throughout the levels of intervention. The chart shows what interventions are in place for students based on their tier. Virtual Virginia interventions are separate from CCPS, but CCPS follows up with students and supports Virtual Virginia interventions as well as intervenes with additional supports. Virtual Virginia interventions include teacher conferences, PACE, which is a program for makeup work, programs to replace grades, and administrative drop from the course. CCPS supports students through specific interventions that include mentors to serve as coaches, school counselors to conduct check-ins, and Ms. Bryant, coordinator of virtual learning, who serves as the team lead in reviewing the case history of the Virtual Virginia student to make recommendations regarding the return to in-person learning or remaining in the virtual learning model based on student performance. Student performance and response to intervention are the indicators that will determine if students return to the Virtual Virginia Learning Program in the second semester. While CCPS has many students that are flourishing in the Virtual Virginia Learning Model, there are students that are not able to keep up with the pace. Based on the student performance and lack of response to the tiered interventions, of the 16 students requiring interventions, 8 Tier 3 and 2 Tier 2 students are required to return to in-person learning at the middle school. At the high school level, there are 13 students that are in jeopardy, and even with tiered interventions are not successful in the virtual learning model through Virtual Virginia. Of the 13 students, 3 of Tier 3 and 1 Tier 2 student will return to the building for in-person learning. As of today, a total of 25 students are required to leave the Virtual Virginia Learning Model. Some of these students are a la carte students taking electives. This communication was sent to the parents and students that are in Tier 2 and 3 in danger of failing for the year. This is an opportunity for students to start anew and have more hands-on support to ensure that they are actively participating in their learning and gaining the knowledge necessary to become a CCPS on-time graduate. The next slide will reveal some key dates for the return of students to the building. On November 22nd, current Virtual Virginia students in Tier 2 and 3 were notified of their possible return to in-person learning. During the week of December 6th through the 10th, we verified enrollment of Virtual Virginia students that were performing above a 60% in all classes to notify students who would continue with Virtual Virginia. We also reconnect with parents and students to discuss Reentry Plan to in-person learning. On December 10th, all Tier 2 and 3 students and a la carte F students were removed from the Virtual Virginia enrollments. And on December 15th, enrollments will be complete for all second semester Virtual Virginia students because it is the last day to enroll students in Virtual Virginia classes. At this time, Mrs. Bryant, the coordinator of virtual learning, and myself will respond to any of your questions.
Dr. Monroe?
Yes.
Two things. How does attendance affect the virtual student? Are they on the same thing that the face-to-face students are?
I'm going to let Mrs. Bryant respond to that question because there's certain things that they do for our online students to ensure attendance, and she's been monitoring that daily. Would you like to speak to that?
To answer that question, students in Virtual Virginia are expected to attend class daily, and they're supposed to log in through their dashboard. If students miss a module, they are allowed to connect with their teacher and then go back and watch a video for attendance purposes or to get the information. Of those students that we have right now that are currently not performing well and getting Fs, we have a significant number of those students that are just not attending any of the classes. So they're not logging in. And I've actually spoke with some of those teachers personally and actually gotten their attendance logs from those teachers. So CCPS does not monitor their attendance, Virtual Virginia does, and then I have to connect with those teachers to find out what it is.
So you don't have a count, 2 days, 3 days, or anything like that?
No, sir, I do not. However, I do know that in the Virtual Virginia model, if students do not log in or watch a video or connect with their teachers for 4 consecutive days, Virtual Virginia will drop them. And then we have to go through a reinstatement meeting, which consists of the parent, the student, the counselor, representative from Virtual Virginia, and oftentimes myself.
Number 2, what kind of success have you had with students that had to come back to face when they go into a class and they're behind everyone else, let's say?
We will not have that data actually until more like the end of this week, because a lot of those students actually returned in the beginning of November and they were really significantly below. And so we haven't really gotten a chance to go back and see if they have been able to make up that progress. However, in working with the administration in both buildings, those administrators have allowed us and counselors to look at their grades and see how we can go back and make up activities, reteach activities, or let students turn in activities that in Virtual Virginia were a flat out 0 for some type of gains for making that work up.
Doesn't that put more work on the teacher?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Bryant, would these students, because this is secondary, would they be eligible for credit recovery?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Taylor?
Yes. How are you impacting the parents, or how is it that you know that the parents are aware of the issues that these students are being faced with?
Actually, sir, I have actually spoken with every single parent in person on that list. I've also emailed and communicated with them via email, as well as the letter that was sent. I will tell you that after the letter that was sent on the 22nd, I did receive a plethora of emails and phone calls, and I have made contact with every single one of those parents.
Okay, thank you.
Intervention. So I appreciate the implementation of virtual education with fidelity. We just can't allow students to not log in and not show up and not turn in anything, and then it's, oh well, that's not acceptable. So thank you for the presentation. Are there any other comments, questions, or concerns from the board? Okay, thank you so much. At this time, I'd ask Marcia Stevens to please come forward with the December monthly updates on revenues, expenditures, and ADM.
Good evening, Chair, Dr. Rollins-Fells, Vice Chair Carsons, members of the board, and Dr. Calveric. I am here to present November FY22, fiscal year 22's financial statements. For the operating fund, we received for the month $1.7 million in revenues, or $17.4 million year-to-date, at 36.57% of our budget. For our special funds, our grant funds, $837,000 for the month, $1.6 million for the year, or 10.38% of the budget. So our total revenues for the month are $2.5 million. $18.9 million year-to-date, or 30.23% of the budget. Onto our expenditures, we had $3.7 million spent out of our operational budget for this month, $16.3 million year-to-date, or 34.45%. $1.7 million in our special funds for this month, $2.6 million year-to-date, or 17.12%. So our expenditures are sitting at for the month $4.8 million, $18.9 million year-to-date, or 30.26%. We received July reports on November 12th, 2021. We are reconciled with those reports with a few adjustments that have been submitted to County Finance and the Treasurer's Office. That is my November FY22 report. Are there any questions on the financial report?
Any questions? Hearing none, thank you, Mrs. Stevens.
Thank you. I will very briefly update you on the ADM report. So Dr. Rollins-Fells, Vice Chair Carsons, members of the board, and Dr. Calveric. For the November reporting, we are ticking down slightly again to 4089 for our ADM for a year-to-date of 4098. We are still above our 4010 that we budgeted. However, we are seeing that trend from August from 4137 down to 4089. Are there any questions on the ADM report?
Any questions on ADM? Okay, no questions on the ADM. Thank you, Mrs. Stevens.
Thank you.
Okay, the Caroline County School Board is entering our public comment section of our agenda. Each speaker must state their name, and you will have 3 minutes to address the board. The speakers may address any item on the board meeting agenda, or you may address an item that was not on the agenda tonight during this time period. The school board will not hear public comment that involves individual student-related matters or personnel matters. Each speaker will be limited to a presentation of their point of view only. Individuals speaking on behalf of an organized group should file with our clerk, Mrs. Stevens, an authorization form from that group allowing the individual to represent them. The school board expects that each speaker will be courteous, modeling for our students how one can respectfully agree or disagree with others' views. Speakers will address their comments to the entire school board and not to one individual member, nor the superintendent, a staff member, or anyone in the audience. Speakers should present their comments from the lectern located at the base of the stage, and the board may only ask questions for clarification. To manage expectations, the board will not respond or engage in two-way conversations with citizens during public comment. The board will rather listen and reflect on all citizen comments made. I will now open the floor for citizens that have signed in with the clerk. Mrs. Stevens, do we have any public comments this evening?
Madam Chair, we do have 3 comments that were brought before the meeting started.
Okay.
Our first comment is on transportation and is Emma Blunt. Thank you.
Hello.
Good evening. Could you state your name and your district?
My name is Emma Blunt. I am a bus driver for the County of Caroline.
Thank you.
I acquired my CDL in February of 2008. Being a bus driver sounded like the perfect job. I could bring my children to work with me. I could get insurance for myself and my family. I would be on the same schedule as my kids were. We would be out of school together, snow days, Christmas breaks. It would be perfect. It turns out that I come from a long line of school bus drivers, 4 aunts and 2 uncles. I love my job. Not only have I made lifelong friends out of colleagues, parents, but out of the children as well. We are not only bus drivers, we are nurses and counselors. We are huggers and high-fivers. We are the first person and the last person that your child sees at the end of their school day. We are a staple in the Caroline County community. When people see us in stores, they come out and say hello. When we're in the Little League park, it's madness. Not only do we fight the road and the weather, we have driven in what seems like monsoons. We have driven in winter blizzards. We sweat gallons during summer school. We are the safest vehicles on the road. Not only are we watching the road and everyone else on it, but we are also watching the little lives in our mirrors. The many distractions that we can get just from simply driving down the road. Vehicles, animals, distracted drivers, people on the side of the road, county workers, it just varies. Add 40 to 75 to 80 children to that we are responsible for. We are underpaid and oftentimes underappreciated. Our job is very stressful. We have good apples and bad apples. We love all of them the same. I treat my bus children like they're my own. Our job is not always just picking up and dropping off your child. We have drivers that do multiple runs in the morning and afternoon, doubling back sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a day. Our job is to make sure that we get your child to school safely. We need a raise, and we need to be considered full-time. If you have insurance through the county, it is very expensive, but that is one of the main reasons why I drive a school bus, is for the insurance. At the end of the month, I'm lucky to bring home enough money to grocery shop for my family. I can go find another job, but I genuinely love what I do. I feel like everyone in Caroline is a family, and we love it here. We are here not for solely the money, but because we love it. We genuinely love it. I also want to say thank you to Mr. Childs for everything that he does for us. From making sure that every child gets to school safely, no matter how many runs he or we have to do to make that happen. Mr. Childs has fought a challenging time of COVID, navigating hybrid and virtual students, and now trying to follow the always ever-changing CDC guidelines. Mr. Childs has built a great team behind him and makes us feel very appreciated. Being short on drivers puts our mechanics, office personnel, and supervisors on the road. If more pay and full-time and benefits were offered, we may have a better chance of getting more drivers. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for sharing your comments.
Our next comment is Amy Costa, and she will also be speaking on transportation.
Good evening. My name is Amy Costa. I am a bus driver for the Bowling Green District. I would like to share some concerns regarding the bus driver compensation. I become a driver due to enjoying children. It's rewarding in my eyes. As a school bus driver, we aren't just confined to driving. We are important, steady persons in these children's lives. Each day gives opportunities to get a child's day started off right, remind them they are special and important. With that being said, we drivers care about the safety of our children and our passengers. That is our top priority, concentrating on the road. A lot goes on inside and out of the school bus. We face severe weather conditions at times, difficult children, road construction at any time, accidents, bullying, fighting, and even celebration can even get out of hand. We drivers are essential with a very important job to accomplish. We have a 4-hour contract that most drivers work well over. Our pay is a little low, way low. The part-time benefits cost our entire paycheck, if not a little more, and to me that's unfair. We drivers should be paid more. Full-time benefits should be offered. I can speak on behalf of, if you have trained drivers to take the children to and from school, if you don't have those, who will do it? This is our job at transportation. Our children to transport our children to and from school, activities, field trips. We are entrusted the safety to take these children where they need to be. We double back, we help other drivers when they're in need, all while having a smile, jumping in head first. It's always easy. We always work as a team. We drivers enjoy what we do. Can't seem to keep drivers due to the lack of income in the surrounding counties is where they choose to go for more money. We are not just bus drivers. We are worthy bus drivers that deserve an increase in pay. Parents, students, teachers, administration, all to put the trust into us bus drivers. We are putting our faith, hope, and trust into you to do the right thing for us drivers. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, for your comments.
Next, we have Wayne Hill, and his topic is transportation.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, board members, Dr. Claverick. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us tonight. How do you follow an act like that? I mean, I'm coming tonight to speak because something is happening that doesn't usually happen to me. I'm frustrated. I'm in my 4th year as a special needs bus driver. My 2nd year as a bus driver trainer. And I have a very simple outlook at my job. The county owns the bus until I get on it. I get behind the wheel, it's my bus. And I drive it like that. And when parents and sometimes grandparents put their kids on my bus, they become my kids. That being said, if I cough, I've been vaccinated, I got my booster. But my kids will bring me everything but the winning lottery numbers. So I always wear my mask. Right now in transportation, we probably have a stack of manila folders about that thick with applications. That's a good thing, right? The bad thing is probably all but 3 of those have been called in for a first interview. And after we ask 9 or 10 questions, I look at more of a way to start conversations and evaluate the candidate. Then we open up questions that they have. And whether it's the first question, the last question, or somewhere in the middle, what's the money? And now I can say that out of all the maybe 3 that haven't interviewed, most of those are avoiding me like the plague when I call. Get no answers, leave voicemails, no responses. And we're losing bus drivers. We've lost them, we're losing them, and we are not going to live forever. So we've got to replace us. Boy, you ever just have your thoughts go away? I remember my first assignment when I became a trainer. Eric, this young lady had been in training and COVID hit, and he said, you've got to teach her pre-trip inspection so we can get her tested before her learners runs out, which I did. We took her, she tested, she passed, she drove for us. That was a year and a half ago, and last I heard she was driving for King George. But it's not about me, it's about these other people that have driven 10, 20, 30 years and more. Imagine their thoughts when they see on the news that this county is hiring and starting people walking in off the street at their rate or more than what they make. I know we're not a big county, we're not a rich county, but something's got to be done to where we can replace what we are going to be losing. Not everybody can get out there at old dark 30 and do what we do. You can't just drive for yourself. You got to drive for everybody on the road. Oh my God, I'm gonna cut off. Because every time I think I've seen every stupid thing a driver can do, somebody comes along and proves me wrong. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. So is your name Wayne Hill? Did I get that? Hall. Wayne Hall. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Stevens, are there any other citizens who signed up for comments?
None that signed up prior to the meeting.
Okay, so at this time, I will open the floor for citizens that may have arrived and did not sign up prior to the start of the meeting. Are there any citizens who would like to share comments at this time? Sir, would you please come down, and for anyone else that may want to speak, the process, so that you are aware, is that you come down to the front. We'll line up single file. We'll need you to sign in with your name and your voting district, and then you have 3 minutes. There should be a traffic light at the end of the table there, and that's just your cue as to the time of what 3 minutes looks like. When it gets to yellow, you should wrap up, And at red, you should state your last statement. So if there are others that may want to speak, that is the process. Good evening, sir.
Sorry, just want to share that with you, let you know that, again, as a citizen and a co-worker for the county, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other citizens that have comments this evening? Are there any other citizens who have comments? Seeing none, the citizens' comment period is now closed. We will move to our action items, and I will just say as a note to those who spoke on citizens' comments, if you stay to the meeting, transportation compensation is an agenda item this evening. Okay. At this time, Mr. Caldwell and Mr. Griffin, would you please come forward with the approval of the capital improvement plan?
Good evening, Chair Dr. Rollinsfeld, Vice Chair Carson, members of the board, and Dr. Kilvarick. I am Christopher Caldwell, and tonight we are happy to present the recommended capital improvement plan for fiscal year 23 through fiscal year 27. You will find on board docs the entire list of CIP requests that are included in the capital improvement plan. Tonight we'll be defining the difference of capital improvement versus capital outlay, explaining the process and timeline of the capital improvement plan, present data and pictures, and then address any questions, concerns, or comments the board may have. The CIP process and timeline consists of 5 steps, which includes a digital survey to receive project requests from stakeholders, walkthroughs of each facility to gather information from stakeholders on projects, CIP committee meetings to review requests and priorities, review of data for price verification, a workshop with the school board members along with school board meeting presentations for school board review and adoption, CIP submission to the county planning department, and lastly, requesting a meeting with the county staff to review our priorities. Capital improvement. A capital improvement project or expenditure must be valued at $50,000 or greater and provide a new or expanded level of service in order to be included in the capital improvement plan. Capital outlay budget any request over $50,000 that does not expand service or current levels. Our goal is to align all requests from stakeholders with Pathways 2022, our strategic plan, to include teaching and learning, school and community relationships, health and safety, and organizational effectiveness. Many projects align with multiple goals in our strategic plan, as you can see in your packet.
Pathway 2022 Teaching and Learning Goal 1 includes profile of a graduate, digital conversion, professional development, and student achievement. At Caroline Middle School, we continue to deliver research-based PD on best practices with small group instruction. New updated furniture is necessary for facilitating this type of instruction in our middle school. Also needed is replacing chalkboards with whiteboards. Madison Elementary is requesting new classroom furniture, student desks, and grades pre-K through 5 have not been replaced for close to 20 years. We have a collection of desks that are a different color as well as different heights. Pathway 2022, School and Community Relationships. Goal 2 consists of family and community engagement, staff and student relationships, and community and business partnerships. The school board office is in need of an electronic sign replacement, which will give CCPS the ability to recruit and advertise achievements and events. A new sign would also be able to identify our school board office building more when individuals come to interview and or have meetings with a member of central office. The Lotus Academy is in need of restroom renovations, outdated restroom facilities, ongoing plumbing issues. A lack of ADA accessibility makes this a high priority now that students are being reintroduced into this building. 2 restroom renovations are needed to improve accessibility and functionality. All these restrooms are frequent uses by citizens of the county during events at both of these facilities. Pathway 2022 Health and Safety Goal 3 includes crisis prevention, preparedness, facility maintenance, and mental health wellness. Caroline High School is in need of a multi-purpose facility to accommodate the scheduling needs of all sports. Carpet in the seminar room, and also there is a high demand for and need for vaping sensors for these restrooms. The CCPS Indoor Air Quality Study completed in December 2020 identified the CMS HVAC air handling system installed in 1992 is at its end of its mechanical life expectancy. Deficiencies include leaks in ductwork, chilled water and hot water piping connections, failing pneumatics, high amp draws on motors due to wear and deteriorating shell of the units themselves. This item was identified as a top priority by the CIP committee, senior staff, and facility management. We have identified the following funder sources: SS3 and CSLFRF HVAC grant, totaling $3,019,000 to fund this project. Unfortunately, with recent price increases due to the effects of COVID-19 and worldwide supply chain disruptions, we have added this project to CIP to help offset any hyperinflation costs currently estimated at $1 million above prior price points. Caroline Middle School is in need of a public announcement system to be replaced due to the ongoing serviceability issues, replacements of worn-out carpet in the band room, chorus room, and vape sensors in restrooms, along with a remodel of the front office to improve safety and security.
Pathways 2022 Organizational Effectiveness Goal 4 consists of fiscal accountability, talent management, and strategic planning. The maintenance department is in critical need of replacement of utility body service trucks. We are also looking to expand our ground maintenance crew with the addition of one John Deere 1600 turbo wide area mower, one trailer to haul the equipment, along with miscellaneous equipment to include trimmers, blowers. Maintenance is also looking at adding personnel to the grounds department in the operational budget to improve the safety, accessibility, and curb appeal of all our buildings. Transportation is requesting a new support vehicle for the supervisor of transportation. The continued replacement of transportational vehicles and 5 buses with air conditioning. Technology department, it is our uninterruptible power supplies to keep the systems running smoothly, along with staff computers to keep up with technology changes and the changes with continuation of the replacement cycle due to wear and tear, warranty expirations, and obsolete hardware. Technology also needs to continue the replacement cycle of our interactive classroom technology and voice over internet protocol phone handsets. Other CIP projects include CHF's turf field, CTE HVAC units, practice field improvements at CHS, baseball stadium upgrades, the CMS paving, and transportation building. The current transportation building has a cramped workspace in its shop, impeding on the ability to work on multiple buses at one time. Currently, there is no AC in the shop, and the need for more equipment to keep up with technology on newer buses and fleet vehicles. A full list of CIP items can be found on your board packet. $7,370,000. Correction. $7,317,402.75 is the recommended CIP request for fiscal year 2023. Tonight we have brought to you the fiscal year 23 through fiscal year 27 CIP budget request for adoption in the total of $41,600,699.99. We would like to thank each of you for your time and attention, and at this time we'll entertain any and all questions, comments, concerns the board may have.
Are there any questions?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
2 questions. Number 1 has to do with the signs. Is that sign at the high school been repaired?
Not at this time. It has not. Technology was looking at it, and we were in cooperation on seeing if we couldn't get that repaired or what it would take to replace that.
So it's just going to stay like it is? Yeah.
We're still looking into it.
Oh, okay. That's important. You go to these other schools and so forth, no, they've got marquees and everything else going on, and that thing out there looks like it's getting ready to explode. Question number 2, transportation. Who gets the air-conditioned buses?
Mr. Spalding, those would be based on the longest routes. Currently, we do have in the ESSER grants 18 air-conditioned buses, 18 air conditions coming in to retrofit our longest routes, 45 minutes or more.
Okay. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Spalding, are there any other board members with questions about CIP? Okay. Hearing none, thank you both for your presentation. This requires action, and so the chair will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move for approval of the capital improvement plan as presented.
So, second.
The motion has been made and properly second to approve the capital improvement plan as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call for the vote.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Copeland?
Aye.
Mrs. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Spalding? Dr. Rollins Fells?
Aye. The motion carries. Our next action item is the approval of the revised FY23 budget calendar, and I'd ask Ms. Stevens to please come forward.
Good evening, Chair Dr. Rollins Fells, Vice Chair Carsons, members of the board, and Dr. Calveric. I am here to request approval of a revised FY23 budget calendar with some adjustments. The Board of Supervisors do not hold a second meeting in February. Thus, I am requesting that we will have our school board approve our budget February 7th, and we will present to the Board of Supervisors, the superintendent and school board to present to the Board of Supervisors at their February 8th meeting. In addition, a revision was made to remove the joint budget work session with the Board of Supervisors and School Board in December, as one was not scheduled. And the last change is January 10th. The public hearing was scheduled for 5:30 at the start of that meeting. With some adjustments to the calendar, we are asking a 6:45 p.m. public hearing to be held that evening. Are there any questions on the revision to the budget calendar?
Madam Chair, I move for approval of the revised FY23 budget calendar.
The motion has been made, Mr. Kelly, and second by Mr. Copeland. Made and properly second. Is there any discussion about the calendar? Sorry. I do have a question for clarity. So the February 7 would require this school board to move from our second Monday of the month to the first Monday of the month for that meeting. Is everybody clear on that? Okay. All right. That's the only point of discussion.
Point of order?
Yes.
I know that we're going to reorganize. We'll reorganize next month, so just want to make sure that those dates are listed when we agree on the calendar, because technically we haven't approved anything for next year at this point. So just whoever's in charge of that, let's just make sure that those dates are listed appropriately and reflected on the calendar.
Okay. So I'd ask the clerk to please call for the vote. There's a motion on the floor.
Mr. Taylor? Mr. Copeland? Mrs. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Spalding?
Aye.
Dr. Rollins Fells?
Aye, the motion carries. The budget calendar for FY23 is revised as approved, as presented.
Thank you.
As we move closer to the end of our meeting, we will now move to new business, and I will have Mrs. Foster please come forward with the first read of the Transportation Compensation Plan.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair Dr. Rollins Fells, Vice Chair Carson, members of the board, and Dr. Calveric. This evening I return for our first read of a compensation request for our transportation department. To recapture the transportation challenges at the local, state, and national level, in late September, Virginia Star reported districts across Virginia are battling a driver shortage as part of a national trend that existed before the COVID-19 pandemic. A survey completed by school transportation organizations found that of 1,500 respondents across the country, 65% said bus driver shortage was their #1 problem or concern, and 51% said the shortage was severe or desperate. The Virginia Star asked industry and school district spokespeople for an explanation of the causes for driver shortages. Some of the reasons they listed included low pay and drivers retiring. COVID-19 related factors included bottlenecks at the DMV, making it hard to train and qualify new drivers, the health risk to older drivers, extra COVID-19 federal benefits, and additionally, some people left the field for other jobs during school closures in previous years. This is not a new issue. It has aggregated over the last few years. One of the causes is that many drivers are retiring, the salary, etc. Virginia Department of Education Executive Director of Communication, Ken Blackstone, said in an email. School bus drivers' pay range from $14 to $18 per hour, and drivers normally do not work 8 hours per day. By contrast, someone with the CDL can drive a dump truck for 8 hours per day, making $20 to $25 per hour. Since our last meeting, Caroline County Public Schools has had a driver hiring event on November 18th, at which time we had 6 applicants, of which 2 are eligible for future conversations and hopefully offers to be made. Within our transportation department, we currently have 73 drivers of the 87 needed for our division, leaving we have 72 bus drivers of the 87 needed, leaving 13 positions vacant. We have 3 aides and 4 of our 6 mechanic positions filled, with 2 vacant positions, resulting in additional strained and prolonged turnaround time to maintain and repair our fleet. During 2021, transportation has experienced not just unfilled positions, but also a high turnover rate, with 10 new hires compared to 25 separations. Of the separations, approximately 30% of drivers have parted due to compensation and 18% due to relocation. Efforts this year to bring new staff on board have included specialized hiring events, as well as traditional advertisement and reaching out to our faith leaders community to advertise on our behalf. As you recall from the information presentation at the November school board meeting, Caroline County Public School driver compensation ranks last when compared to 16 surrounding counties, with a starting hourly rate of $13.60. When the 16 division starting pay is averaged, the rate of pay is $17.15. Tonight, we are providing the proposed compensation increases, which we will ask the school board to vote on next month, to the starting rate of pay for aides and drivers, adjusting the associated scales. Bus aides from $12.26 to $12.75. Car drivers from $12.89 to $14, and bus drivers from $13.51 to $16. You will notice that the percent increase gets higher as skills and responsibilities are increased due to position demands. Please note that there are 19 employees that will have little or no impact this year due to the fact that they are already above the scale because of the change several years back when they were above scale and they received a COLA and no steps until scales catch up with them. With the proposed change, some of them the scale caught up to, however, others are still above the new scale. Tonight's proposed investment in our transportation personnel increases our annual cost by $154,000 because 75% of our drivers are working over 5 hours per day. Once fully staffed, this investment will be $123,000. taking us from 17 of 17 school divisions to 13 of 17 when compared with surrounding divisions, knowing there is more work that needs to be done. Thank you, and at this time, do you have any questions?
Any comments or questions from the board?
I'd only like to say it's about time, and I'm happy to hear of the increases. I'd like to see them go higher as time goes on or more monies become available. And I'm really proud of our drivers, school buses, and SPED students, and all of them. They do us a great service. Thank you very much to each of you.
Thank you, and I would like to make a comment as we are making these proposes. We are also looking at doing a compensation study in the division, looking at transportation, all services, as well as teachers. So we are looking at first the immediate needs as soon as possible, then looking at fiscal year 23, and then after that.
Any other board comments? Okay. So this was our first read on the transportation compensation report. If there are no other questions, thank you, Mrs. Foster. We will have a continued conversation and be able to move this to action. Dr. Calveri?
I would like to inquire about funding sources and whether or not you'd be able to enlighten the board regarding any potential funding.
Certainly, yes. Looking at the price right now for investment in our personnel, along with requesting money, we have applied for a $50,000 grant to hopefully offset the cost. That being said, that's one-time funding, so we know that there is a recurring cost on investment for our most valuable resource, which is our human resource.
And so can you share any information associated with partnership with Board of Supervisors?
Certainly. So what I would do is request that you partner with the Board of Supervisors to be able to fully fund this request, knowing that there will be reoccurring cost in upcoming years.
Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Foster. And I was going to save this for my board comment, but I'll make it now. Someone in the citizens' comments, you mentioned that sometimes you feel unappreciated. And so let me just say, as a parent of a child that just graduated and I'm starting all over again, that bus driver is at that doorstep on time every single morning. That door opens and she says, "Good morning," and I yell, "Have a great day," and my son says, "I will," and then she carries on a quick conversation and ushers him or encourages him to go to his seat. You set the tone for those kids every single day. You greet them when they've had a long day at school, and you encourage them to go home and continue to be the champion that they are. And so while you may not hear the thank yous every time that door bus opens, you need to know that you are valued, you are appreciated, you are honored, and I said it in our opening convocation, you cannot use the word just in your description. You are not just a car driver or just a bus driver. You are the pulse that makes this system work, and so we appreciate all that you do, and I wanted to make sure that we soothe that and that you hear from me personally that you are honored and you are appreciated. I also want to thank Mr. Childs, and I know you're not one that wants or needs the accolades, but when a department can stand up and say that my leader sets the example and sets the tone, there are a lot of times that you have to take a hit, sir, when things don't go well, and by golly, we're going to congratulate you when it does go great. And so when your team members are willing to pick up extra shifts because they see you doing it, that is to be commended. So thank you for your leadership. With that, I'm going to open, thank you, Ms. Foster, for your presentation. Know that this is an important topic for us. I think that I've resolved any outstanding issues that I wanted to speak on, and we will now open this up to board comments and committee reports. If we could do those in one in the interest of time, that would be great, and I'll start to my right as I generally do. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, lady. I do have a report from the Equity and Diversity and Inclusion Committee, for which I've been serving on, and that's a brief report. Before I do that, though, I would like to again echo my sentiments to the bus drivers. I saw something a couple of weeks ago where a bus pulled up and nobody got off, and so the driver went down the road, and about 10 or 15 minutes later, I saw the bus turned around and came back. And so I was where I could speak to the driver. And I said, did you forget someone? And she said, no. She said, I couldn't let the child off because it's a kindergarten student and the parent was not there. And so I had to continue with my route, and I had to come back, and hopefully the parent would be there, and then I could put the child off. And I said, so you're telling me that you had to keep the child, go on with your route, and come back? And she said, yes. And I said, well, what if the parent wasn't there when you got back? She said, I would have had to take him back to school, or I would have had to find a place with a responsible adult. I could not put that child off. And certainly I agreed with that. But that let me know the sincerity of the jobs that you all perform. So again, I want to say thank you. I also want to say thank you to Megan. We've said it a couple of times, but we can't say it too much. Megan, I have really enjoyed you being on this board. I've learned from you, and I just know you're going to be great. And finally, as I said, I do have a brief report about the Equity and Diversity Committee. We met on December 6th, and we engaged in meaningful discussions about the fears of ongoing problems that come about as a result of diversity. We brainstormed, and we shared many positions and outcomes working toward being culturally proficient. The committee covered key themes in chapters 3 and 4 of the book that we're using, entitled Cultural Competence Now. And we have a better understanding of why curriculum needs to serve as both a window and a mirror where all students can see themselves as well as the contributions of others in a positive way. As a result of our learning, the committee has decided to focus on 4 themes for the creation of equity, diversity, and inclusion in breakout rooms. The 4 themes will be Caroline experience that have educated and historically impacted the citizens of Caroline County and beyond. And we will continue our book study and begin planning and researching and designing each breakout room experience at our January 17th meeting from 5 to 7. Culture is important. It explains in many instances why we do what we do and why we think the way we think. And it helps us to understand each other. And so this committee is geared toward helping students, parents, staff, and everybody to understand culture and how culture impacts us and why it's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Copeland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I serve on the Chesapeake Bay Governor School and the Commonwealth Governor School, and we have gone through and just derived our budgets, got them approved, and we're moving on, trying to get more students and trying to make sure that we're providing the best programs that we can. And I have to say that I am extremely proud of Miss Megan McCoy. She's done an awesome job. She set the standard that's going to be tough to follow, but I'm sure Mr. Swanton is going to do awesome. Look forward to having you on the board, and seeing your contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Mr. Spalding?
Yes, ma'am. I too would like to comment on the bus driver situation. People don't realize we have roughly, 75 buses on the road in the morning. And you hear about all these car wrecks and this sort of thing and all. Every now and then you hear of a bus wreck and everybody goes, oh, wow, that's terrible, so forth and all. And the thousands and thousands of school buses that are driving across this nation right now, and usually when it's a wreck, it's the other person's fault. And I know you people work hard and you're careful drivers, and I always appreciate a bus driver. I remember when I went and got my license. I had my license when I was coaching. And you're underappreciated, and all the good things that people have said about you in here tonight, I just say, I know what you're doing and all, okay? And I want to say Merry Christmas to all of our staff and the board up here and all. And this Christmas is going to be a lot hard for a lot of people down in Kentucky and Arkansas. So when you're sitting around this Christmas and you're praying, you pray for those people. Because I'm telling you right now, it's like I used to tell my wife, how would you like to walk out in front of your house, then turn around and it'd be gone? I mean, gone. Everything in it, your clothes, all you'd have on, all you'd have was what you'd have on. And it's really heartbreaking for those people, especially this time of the year. So just remember and be thankful of how you are and the situation you're in. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spalding. Mrs. Carson?
I would like to also thank the bus drivers. At the last Board of Supervisors meeting, I also stood up and I spoke in your behalf. My grandson rides 3 different buses. His parents are separated, so he rides from Ladysmith, he rides from Frog Level, and then he rides the activity bus. So I do appreciate you. I could never do the job you did. I taught pre-K, K, and 1, and I know how the little ones are. In the morning, they're quiet, but in the afternoon, and I just know I just couldn't do it. And we are here for you, and we're supporting you. And come February, when we are advocating for money from the Board of Supervisors, please come and join us and step up at public comments, because we need you to back us. We're out there crying and asking for y'all, but we need you to come and advocate too. We would love to have y'all with us. Wear your bus driver shirts. We wear our shirts, and we're all down there. We're fighting for you every day. We will be battling with them tomorrow evening, probably. Hopefully not. But we always are advocating as much as we can. I'm on the Caroline Educational Foundation, and we had our meeting last week, and we had 15 teachers apply for grants this year. So they are getting reviewed as we'll see in January how many we award. We try to do that, and then at the end of the year, after they have done their grants, we go to view to see how the grants go. The parade on Sunday, yesterday, that was postponed, the float that Bruce, I believe, helped build, we won first place. It was wonderful to see the kids and the parents and the people out, and I was so proud of our board. Some of us couldn't be there, but we had 4 walk in, and we were pushing and hollering and saying Merry Christmas, and it was really heartwarming to see the number of people that came out to support the parade. And Megan, thank you again for all you've done, and it's a pleasure. This was a dream of one of our former school board members, that we have a student member. And so I know she's looking down, really happy, and you have a great one coming, but best wishes to you next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carson. Mr. Kelly?
Committee reports. Unfortunately, the Athletic Committee and the Gifted Advisory Committee both met on November the 30th at the same time, which made it rather difficult, especially when my doctor told me that I tested positive for something and had to stay inside the house for about 2 full weeks, 10 days. That is not fun. That is the most boring thing in the whole world, and I won't share it here, but it was the oddest Thanksgiving in the world. So I do have the minutes, but nothing specific I can give you firsthand information on. Mr. Just, I'd like to thank you for the chemistry tutoring after school, going above and beyond. And I've heard all the stories about how every student that you've ever taught or tutored has been successful except for one. And that is a really funny joke. I was told he's still got that teaching stuff going on, whatever that stuff is that the teachers do. The ability to relate to students, it never leaves, and thank you so much for that. VSBA conference was a resounding success for us as we were able to stand and be applauded for our contributions for what we do, which is always a great experience. Girls swim team won for the second time in school history against Culpeper. It was a resounding success. And I'd like to point out that the 8th graders who are not varsity but are swimming exhibition, that relay team is absolutely fantastic and a lot of fun to watch those little guys go. Holiday greetings, of course, to everybody, everywhere. Take the time, take the break, and enjoy it. Speaking of the VSBA conference, I got to spend about an hour and 15-minute drive down with Coach and an hour and 15-minute drive back with Coach. And I probably learned enough. I should get some type of extra certification with that. I should get a degree in the history of Caroline County athletics. He is a gem. He is a jewel. And one of the greatest things that ever happened in this county and to me. And it was truly a blessing to be able to spend that time with him and learn. Try to learn. I mean, he's probably forgot more about public education than I've learned. Bus drivers. I will say this, because I took notes of everybody coming up there talking about pay. And a couple of you said, it would be nice to get some extra pay so we could pay our insurance, to get our benefits paid for. All of you said you're in it for the kids, and the reason we need more money wasn't for you, but to get more drivers into the system. I applaud you for your dedication every day, and I know, I'm looking at the clock and it's 8:13 at night. I know this is a late night when you got to get up and be out there at 5:20 in the morning or 5:15 in the morning. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for doing it for the kids, and thank you for advocating on behalf of the kids. As Ms. Carson said, I hope that some of you can show up tomorrow night and say something, but definitely when we go into budget season and we need your voice, we need that ammo when we go and say this is why we need the funding for our children. And Madam Chair, I'd like to thank you for doing a great job of keeping us all together all the time. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. All right, my comments in terms of my update. I normally save Megan for last. Megan, would you like to go? Okay.
Good afternoon or evening. So first I want to address the students. This is midterm week, SOL week for a lot of students. And for those who are taking DE courses, finals week for the first half of your courses. So I just want to say good luck to everybody who is taking midterms, finals, SOLs, whatever you're taking. Good luck. Second, I do want to address the bus drivers as well. As a student, my bus driver is here. I don't ride the bus this year, but I did. And I do want to say, as a student, I do appreciate my bus driver and everybody, all the bus drivers. I know that although the students may not say it, that they really do appreciate you guys getting them to school and back home safely. So thank you. I also want to say thank you to the board. It's been a great year. I really appreciate the welcome that I got and the support that I received from the board, Dr. Calveric, Dr. Monroe, Ms. Foster, and all the other staff. I really appreciate it. And it was a great honor to be able to serve on this board. And lastly, I want to say congratulations to Adam. Although I have not been able to meet you personally yet, I've had both of your parents as teachers. So I know that you are going to be an amazing school board member, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
I did not want to go after Megan. So I knew she was going to make a tear come in my eye. And so I guess I'll put the capstone on tonight and bookend. In terms of my committee updates, I do sit on the CIP committee. The report was given tonight, and so just thank you again to both of the gentlemen for the work that you do behind the scenes, and it's great to see both of you presenting the information on behalf of the departments. So that's CIP. And then with VSBA, as Mr. Kelly said, we did have our annual convention, and at that convention there were some things that I wanted to point out. Many of the board members, all of the board members, we split up and we attended different workshops. The one that I wanted to mention was the data collection and monitoring. And so with that, we do have a school board member, Mr. Copeland, where we are leveraging his finance background to serve on a special committee to make sure that we are monitoring, reviewing, and having a pulse on all of the COVID funds and what we're doing with that. I also had the opportunity to chair and facilitate a workshop called Governance in Challenging Times. I facilitated the 115th year of VSBA, where we had a panel discussion with former leaders, and the theme was leadership, advocacy, and service. We then broke out into our regional chair meetings. As you all know, I am the Eastern Region Chair President, and so with that, there are 15 school districts that comprise the Eastern Region. We have made a plan for our regional spring meeting, and we will be talking about best practices. So as we are returning to better, we are going to be leveraging the collective knowledge of all of the different school boards and what they have been doing to address certain things like learning loss, pay, curriculum, all of that educational rhetoric. And then we also had a panel for Master Board. Mr. Kelly and Ms. Carson was able to attend that meeting with me. There are 5 school boards in the state of Virginia who have earned the Master Board designation. It does require extra coursework for board members, and it requires 100% participation. At that board meeting, we were officially recognized by the state, and so with that, I wanted to thank each board member for your commitment to learning. The other thing of significance with the annual convention was that VSBA, as a state organization, partnered with the training organization who provides professional development for Board of Supervisors. The topic at the state level is sometimes the dysfunction and the disjointed communication that happens between the school boards and governing bodies. I think that's important to mention because it is a state level conversation, and we have been very present with that. Speaking of which, we will continue as a CCPS board to champion for increased communication and collaboration. And as such, we do have a joint board meeting tomorrow night. We are looking forward to that. We are going to continue to champion for effective and efficiency in processes and protocols. I want to say thank you to all the students and constituents and the faculty and staff who reached out to say thank you to the board members for adjusting the holiday calendar for the extended Thanksgiving break. I want to say happy holidays to everyone. Be safe. Make sure that you reflect, you refresh, and you come back rejuvenated in the new year. And then lastly, thank you again to Megan Mccoy for your outstanding leadership and service. And I wanted to welcome Adam as well, who did a stellar job in his own right in his interview. We look forward to the input that you have to offer, sir. And make sure that the two of you collaborate in your transition as you prepare to take on the board next month. With that, that concludes my board comments, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Calveric for her superintendent remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Rollins-Fells. At the risk of sounding redundant, I want to share my love and my gratitude to our drivers, to Megan, incoming Adam, as well as Stephanie Sadler, who was at our podium this evening talking about Teachers for Tomorrow. Each of you is passionate about students, education, and our community, and that is a trifecta that is hard to beat. So thank you so much. I do want to remind our community that CCPS is utilizing grant funding to provide greater access to internet and Wi-Fi. And so we have 6 Wi-Fi trailers that have just been added to our division, and you can find these at Round Oak Baptist Church, Salem Baptist Church, Reedy Church Ruritan Club, Rehoboth United Methodist Church, County Line Baptist Church, and Cardinal Baptist Church beginning December 15th. Directions on how to connect to those Wi-Fi trailers are attached to the devices, so we hope that this helps our community in our more rural areas be able to gain better internet connection. I do also want to echo the same sentiments that Ms. Carson shared in relation to the parade. It was well orchestrated. The decision to move to Sunday yielded great results with warm weather and a sunny day, and we are so excited to have the CCPS float be recognized as first place. But not only did the school board office float do well, but we also had FFA float received third place, and for the best marching units, we secured first, second, and third through Lewis and Clark, the CHS Marching Cavaliers, and Bowling Green Elementary. A big shout out to our new coordinator of communications and community engagement, Kim Young. This was her first parade rodeo, and I would say it was a great success, Mrs. Young. So thank you so much. I also want to remind our community, this is students, staff, and families, that our calendar survey is currently out there online, and we want all of your input regarding a potential instructional calendar for the 22-23 school year, and time is running out. It closes on December 15th, which if I look in my head and think about a calendar, I believe that's Wednesday. So please be sure to let your voices be heard. We do read that information. And I just want to close by wishing a joyous holiday season to all of our staff, students, and families. Please find time to rejuvenate, relax, and we certainly hope that the 2022 new year brings us peace, happiness, and yes, health. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Calveric. And there was one person I forgot to recognize. Welcome, Dr. Reed, to the team. Yes, we can give him a round of applause for that. Welcome to the team, sir. I believe this is your first official school board meeting, and so we look forward to meeting with you. Actually, you already have a task because I requested a meeting with the instructions. All right, and so with that, we will now move to having a motion to move into closed session.
So move.
Wonderful.
Second.
Moved. Okay, and for the purpose of the legality of the motion, what you're moving is for the superintendent's personnel agenda for the discussion of appointments, reassignments, resignations, reclassifications, terminations, requests for family medical leave, stipends, coaches, as authorized by section 2.2-3711A, subsection 1 of the Code of Virginia 1950, as amended. Is there any discussion? Great. Clerk, please call the vote.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Copeland?
Aye.
Mrs. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Spalding? Dr. Rollins-Fells?
Aye, the motion carries. We will now go into closed session. Thank you for those of you who attended in person tonight and those watching online.